This encyclical comes at a critical moment in human history. The ecological crisis is essentially a spiritual problem. The sin against the environment, the ecological sin.
This is big for the Pope. Consume less and buy less. We have to really rethink our lifestyles.
He blames a lot of it on society's throwaway culture.
He tweeted out that the Earth, our home, is beginning to look more and more like an immense pile of filth.
Immense pile of filth.
Pile of filth.
The encyclical Praise Be is the most important papal document ever on the environment, backing the science on climate change, blaming free markets, holding rich nations responsible. Environmentalists and many on the left are cheering the message. Since the Argentinian Archbishop became Pope, Francis has shifted the focus away from the Church's conservative stance on things like abortion and made attacks on inequality and the excesses of capitalism central.
He is launching a broadside on many of the things that we take as commonplace.
For some, it's like Occupy Wall Street took over the Vatican.
This is just pure Marxism coming out of the mouth of the Pope.
He has a Marxist background.
Who else could or would say this sort of thing and get more traction? Maybe he doesn't get much, but there's not many people that can speak or seem to speak with his type of moral authority. If there is going to be a message on this simply put out there in very bold terms, it's difficult to imagine it coming from anywhere else.
Let's bring in Andrew Steer. He is CEO of the World Resources Institute, an environmental research organization. He's also been a special envoy for climate change at the World Bank. Andrew, thank you so much for being with us. The Pope, with some very strong words, do you think it's going to move the needle?
I believe it will, yes. 5,000 bishops will receive this. 1.2 billion Catholics will hear about it. Every Catholic school child will be taught it. But really, all people of goodwill will read this. It's 200 pages long, but it's an inspiring read. So yeah, I do believe it will move the needle, and it's part of a growing drumbeat that's underway now that we just have to do something different in order to address climate change. So the good news is that a number of leading businesses are very much aligned with what the Pontiff is saying.
Absolutely, because frankly, a lot of them are starting to see the effects hit their global supply chain. So you could say it's motivated by self-interest. Certainly, nobody wants to be called out by this extremely popular Pope. So he is talking really tough on businesses. Do you think he's going to pressure them in a more direct way? Would you expect to see him reach out to corporations or people he feels like, companies he feels like are really not towing the line in a more direct way?
Well, we had the privilege of meeting with him about a month ago, together with some of his cardinals, such as Cardinal Turkson, we just saw on the television screen. And there's no question about the fact that they want to be engaged in this. I mean, we had 3 hours of very serious discussion on the economy, essentially. For a while, large corporations have been saying they want to do something about climate change. 80% of the biggest 500 companies in the world now have targets to lower their greenhouse gases. The problem is those targets are generally not enough. So now there are about 50 large major corporations, household names, that are committing not only to lower their carbon emissions, but to lower them in a scientifically credible way so that they will actually be part of the solution. So there's a coalition building where you could very easily imagine people of the world, those who are concerned about the bottom line, and as you say, those who care about the resilience over time of their businesses, can be aligned with people of faith and 3,000 years of faith tradition, which in this encyclical that His Holiness lays out so clearly.
Yeah, absolutely, and he certainly has a very powerful pulpit to do that from. Andrew, we have a lot of breaking news. We have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming in.
Now this, Pope Francis will issue an encyclical on climate change and income inequality. Basically, that is a policy declaration. And if you look at the way the Pope addresses climate change, very similar, if not identical, to President Obama. All rise. Judge Andrew Napolitano.
I don't know if he's going to compel Catholics to a certain agreement with him. He really doesn't have the authority to do that. I think going to suggest that the government has the duty of keeping the environment clean because that will help save the poorest among us. Now, if he wants to issue that as a political statement, to me, that's Jorge Bergoglio, also known as Pope Francis, giving a political opinion which is irrelevant to Catholicism. But if he's going to move the mechanism of the church behind something,
Anyway you
it better
slice
not
it,
be
when
political.
you've got President Obama aligned with Pope Francis, that is a very powerful force, shifting public opinion, in my opinion, to the left worldwide.
I agree with you, particularly on this issue, particularly on an issue where it's difficult to have a correlation between what the Pope is saying and what his duty is, which is to save souls.
Climate change will impact every country on the planet. No nation is immune. So I'm here today to say that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security, an immediate risk to our national security. And make no mistake, it will impact how our military defends our country. And so we need to act, and we need to act
At the top
now.
of our list was the urgency of a world response to the threat of climate change. And the Secretary General has been a consistent champion of a concerted, unified global response to the issue. I shared with him the work that we are doing in the United Nations so that we can be a leader in addressing this critical, perhaps the critical issue that faces humankind going forward.
The year 2015 must be a time for global action on sustainable development and climate change. In Paris this December, all governments must commit to a meaningful, universal agreement on climate. We can do it. But we must join hands to mobilize finance, move markets, and encourage bold action from world leaders. Live Earth Road to Paris will bring us together and amplify our voices. It will help us seize the opportunity of a low-carbon future. We all have a role to play in building a more peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world for ourselves and for our children. I urge people everywhere to take climate action now. Thank you.
This is the year of climate. The Paris negotiation is crucial. In order to ensure its success, we need the political will. But political will is a renewable resource. And as part of the effort to renew that global political will, I am very excited, grateful to Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum that my colleagues and I in just a moment are able to announce here on this stage in Davos a major event this year. I want to invite the legendary artist, beloved creative artist, Pharrell Williams, who is the creative director of Live Earth, to join me on stage with Kevin Wall, the co-founder of Live Earth and the one who makes it all happen. Please come on up. We are going to have one event all over the world on all 7 continents. We said 6, but we've since organized a band in Antarctica. There will be an audience of 2 billion, the largest television, digital, radio network ever created, all as one. And the creative director is a man I'm proud to call a friend who I admire greatly, Pharrell Williams. Tell us about it.
First of all, thank you for having us all here. In 2007, I was lucky enough to be named the creative director of the Live Earth event, in which case that we convened in Rio, in Ipanema, on the beach of Ipanema, and it was Lenny Kravitz and myself, and it was over 1 million people on the beach, and we had a ball. And it was a fairly new subject for me, but it was a very interesting challenge, and I noticed that here and there people would, you would have pundits and you would have comedians who didn't understand global warming, and so we were often ridiculed. But after seeing such an incredible presentation and watching the news, I think you guys know how serious the global warming thing is. And so for us, we're taking it very seriously, and we wanted to do something very different this time. Instead of just having people perform, we literally, and I can't go all the way into it now because some interesting surprises coming out soon, but we literally are going to have humanity harmonize all at once. And I am very, very, very happy and proud to be a part of this, this moment for our species. We're a very precious species, and if we've learned anything from what David's shown us earlier, is that it takes the perfect conditions. And I think that we have to continue to give to that idea of it being a perfect condition in this world. So thank you guys very much.
Well, thank you, Pharrell. And the purpose is to have 1 billion voices with one message to demand climate action now. Kevin Wall, my co-founder and partner, is the head of Control Room, and the Climate Reality Project is joining with this. Kevin, tell us more details.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for inviting me. The power of music is unique because it's borderless. It's without language. Pharrell, one of the greatest, producers, writers, musicians today in the world, will use that power, and when you use music combined with a message, you can affect change. Because messages, that's how commercials work, and that's how major effecting of change on a global basis happens. So we're combining these two things. 7 events, all of them in major stadiums. So we start in China, Sydney, Australia, Rio de Janeiro, Cape Town, South Africa, New York City. In Paris, we're ending at the National Stadium. These events will run 4 to 6 hours, and they have major, major artists, some of the biggest artists ever collected, with one message: take climate action now.
Pope Francis participated in a global meeting of mayors about climate change and human trafficking. His encyclical, Laudato Si', was a major inspiration for the mayors who attended the conference. He explained to them that before all else, his encyclical is a social document.
Una de las cosas que más se nota cuando el ambiente, la creación no es cuidada, es el crecimiento desmesurado de las ciudades. Es un fenómeno mundial. Las grandes ciudades se hacen grandes, pero cada vez con cordones de pobreza y de miseria más grandes, ¿no? Donde la gente sufre los efectos de un descuido del ambiente.
Deforestation, the Pope said, is an example of excessive technification. He added that it takes the dignity of work away from people and forces them into poverty. This sort of desperation drives them into human trafficking as a way to improve their future. Hopefully, the international community will address the issue, the Pope said.
Yo diría que sobre esto hay que interesar a las Naciones Unidas. Tengo mucha esperanza en la cumbre de París de noviembre, que se logre algún acuerdo fundamental y básico.
Before leaving, the Pope signed a joint declaration with more than 60 mayors. They vowed to take more steps to fight human trafficking and to make their cities more sustainable.
We are here all together because we know that the world needs to fight climate change with much, much greater seriousness. Taking action now will not only solve the problem of protecting the planet, but it will be a tremendous boost for economy. We've got to tackle the issue of carbon pricing.
In other words, if you use carbon tax, if you use various tax mechanisms to raise revenue and reallocate intelligently, you do well for the ecology.
I urge political leaders of the world to prioritize their resources and their political energy on climate change. Climate change is a defining issue of our times and existential threat to our life and development. We have to address this issue immediately.
On September 24th, His Holiness, Pope Francis, will visit us here at the United States Capitol. That day, His Holiness will be the first Pope in our history to address a joint session of Congress. We're humbled that the Holy Father has accepted our invitation and certainly look forward to receiving his message on behalf of the American people.
Cannot.
I will not worship that.